Welcome back to the Budding Author Podcast with me, Simon Ward, your host. Today, we are talking to a modern mystical poet who brings healing to each reader. Well, that sounds excellent. Here's Wendy Slater. Hi, Wendy.
Hey, Simon. Thanks for having me on your podcast.
My pleasure indeed. Do you know,
Totally.
just hearing you talk, I feel calmer already.
Oh, cool. Very good. Everybody, we had a brief conversation before we started the taping. Yeah.
It's very, very good. So how did you get into all of this, the poetry and the healing side of things?
Um, that's a good question. I think fundamentally I came in this way. And I I'm 60 now, and I would say for a little over half of my life, maybe a little bit more, I thought I thought everybody worked this way. I isn't that and I was just writing something about it, and it makes me laugh. I mean, just but that was my assumption that everyone could read energy. Everyone was working on a psychic level. I was not aware growing up of the ability I had to read people or the healing, bring in healing. Um, and it wasn't until I was in my 30s. But I had returned to school. I was in my last semester as and college as an older adult in 28 to 30 and
Yeah.
getting my bachelor's of science in biology and conservation biology because I wanted to study something I had no exposure to before. And I'd
Okay.
had a lot of liberal arts and all that.
Yeah.
And I became so I was going to go on and either go to veterinary school or go on the track for a master's, et cetera, in biology and conservation biology and genetics. And I was sort of struck down out of the blue, seemingly, um, with a health crisis
Oh,
that the best medical doctors growing I live in New England, so there's down in Boston, which is where I grew up, they're incredibly world renowned hospitals,
yeah.
and I wasn't getting answers at all. And it was so drastic being so physically active and then literally crawling out of the car with extreme vertigo and exhaustion.
Yeah.
In hindsight, it seems that it most probably was Lyme's disease before they treated it or identified it here. But, anyways, that put me, two things were going on simultaneously. And ultimately, I had to drop out of school because I could not, I was doing organic chemistry and putting it
Yeah.
off and not able to concentrate. And um, I had, so I was not raised in a religious house, and it was a very intellectual house. And I just remember at that time just quietly surrendering and not understanding what I was surrendering to, but a larger energy,
Yeah.
call it divinity or all that is. And I knew I was going to get through whatever this was, which took years.
Yeah.
And I, I just I didn't understand the enormity of it, but I was going to have to surrender who I thought I was, which I suppose now we could say, when I say now, I mean in a sort of intellectual conversation that does involve the mysticism and spirituality. I was going to have to really examine the definitions of labels of who I was as a partner, a daughter, a woman, someone who had nothing to do with spirituality, but was having a profound awakening
Yeah.
within a year or two psychically. And um, I, my father, who is no longer alive, had introduced me, I'm going to say about 10 years before, to or given me the name of someone, a holistic MD who was
Yeah.
Harvard trained. And I'd seen him once or twice as an 18 or 19 or 20-year-old, and it was take these vitamins and do that. And I was like, who's got time and money to do all this? Because I don't. I'm 18 and 19, and I've got, I'm really healthy, but I knew it existed, and he was respected. And so I started seeing him and added to it other than modalities. I was fortunate to have an incredibly gifted acupuncturist. I remember having the experience of asking her, I was being exposed to so much and still skeptical of all this. I could grok, as they say, I could get acupuncture because some of the hospitals down in Boston did use it. After I think it was the trick Nixon did to China or something that brought it back. But saying to her, because I was so sick, I mean, literally, seriously, just, I couldn't drive. I was incredibly weak. I don't want to really relive the details. So, asking her what she thought of homeopathy, because that intellectually made no sense to me at all, which is sort of diluted. It's energy imprints of things that are then taking medicinally. So when I say imprints, there is nothing in the solution that's detectable, that is still, to my knowledge, detectable, that is still that herb or whatever. And she said basically, yeah, she was like, you try it. You need help. This is like serious. You're losing weight. You're, wasting away. And I was lying on the table she had left the room, the treatment. And I was all of a sudden thinking about isolated cultures throughout history. And I'd already started reading. I've always been a voracious reader. So I was starting to read stuff about, I'd studied anthropology. I had some exposure, but medicine women and, stuff like that I was starting to read about. And it was just this moment of but something profoundly changed in me, of the realization that these cultures that had been, some of them so isolated, meaning, small remote populations that had never had contact with anything outside of their remote island population, blah, blah, blah. I started going, well, they all had a word for like shaman, medicine woman, understood the invisible. They had words for it in their culture, whether it was prana and chi. I still get chills thinking about it. And intellectually, I was like, that, yeah, you could, argue like, well, some of these trades, they were going all over the place. But some of these populations, no, they are thought of still to have been entirely isolated. So that opened everything. And I started studying and receiving, but with shamans, medical intuitives, and everyone was like, never seen a healing conduit that I've seen in you. No one had seen that. So I didn't ask for this. I tried to shut it down. And I remember a conversation with divinity or spirit about it, because I was seeing past lives instantly. This was a shamanic awakening around 95. I got ill in 91, the fall, or maybe it was 93. And I was actually starting to see, which people will talk about it now, but this was like 95. This is much more, even if it's peripherally, in our vocabulary now. I mean, people get yoga, and, so I was starting to see orbs of color that were clearly, because I had been
around people, yeah.
No, they were coming. They were out here, like, and I just went, oh Jesus, I said more, like, no. I was like, no, and I was seeing crystal clear images in my third eye of, just different faces I'd never seen. And I went, no, this is loop-de-doo, not doing this, not going there.
It echoes of the Sixth Sense.
Not echoes. Yeah, it was the Sixth Sense, and it had blown open. And what I heard divinity or, channeled, they were like, if you think this is hard, this is going to be like excruciating. And I went, no. And it was the most difficult 3 days of my life, because that's when I understood this was part of me always.
Yeah.
I did not see the orbs anymore. I said, we're not going there, people, angels, and like, not happening. I'm not, so I'm saying I had to walk through like, oh God, I'm different. Oh, woo, woo, woo. I'm not woo, woo, woo. I don't want to be woo, woo, woo. Right? I'll keep this private. So, anyways, and then it went on from there, studying and modalities and seeing clients and finally integrating it all into the Trajuca method, which is a combination of everything I channel. So there's the long answer for you.
So how did you get into the poetry side of that to connect?
Oh, well, so I grew up in downtown Boston and in Massachusetts in the US. And my father, we had a library in the home I grew up in. And my father introduced me to poetry as a child. And there was also in the library, he was a historian, but there were also there were his children's books there as well. So I remember pulling off, A.A. Milne and, his children. So I was exposed at a very young age. And then as I got older, more exposed. And two of the poets that really influenced me in my teenage years, Adrienne Rich and Anne Sexton, there's still threads of that in my poetry. Yeah. That is like in my marrow, that sort of writing.
You say with your poetry, you're sort of bringing healing to readers in a unique way. So how does that work then?
That's a good question. Well, it's all part of it is getting the affirmation from readers and reading their experience from reading it.
Okay.
It's so I not only channel and I don't say that like I'm not doing that professionally, but that is what I do. That I distill incredibly complex concepts into simple language.
Yeah.
So whether I'm talking to a person or writing, an article about something complex, I think it starts like the first back cover I wrote, it took me a while to think about it. And it just speaks all this poetry was written when I went on a trip to Scotland in 2001, I think it was.
Yeah.
And I had not written poetry for years. Previous few years, I had written a few poems, but I used to write poetry all the time. And
when you're writing the poetry, I don't suppose you have much editing to do to that. Is it something that
I do? It is free form. I mean, I don't. Well, I have occasionally used a computer recently. It's all in books. I'll start a new book, or that's the way I wrote the 20 volumes that started.
You just come to you and you just write, because that's short.
Yeah, so 18 or 20 volumes started to pour out of me in this trip to Scotland over like 9 years. And I didn't know what it was, but it was about the spiritual journey of awakening.
Yeah. And
the confusion. It is not a simple, straightforward experience. And
so off the tangent slightly, sort of, what sort of things do you tap into, like if you're within a city environment or within nature, which I think the nature would be a much calmer and more better place to think.
So the reason I call it modern, yes, I could see why you'd think that. But sometimes being peaceful in nature can bring up the experience of something somewhere else.
Yeah.
You know, it's modern. I coined it modern mystical poetry because it's for we live in a wounded world. We live in an incredibly fast-paced world.
Yeah, it's mad,
And so, the classic mystical poetry, like Hafiz, or if I'm pronouncing his name correctly, or Rumi, I'm like, that's beautiful, but that was written hundreds of years ago.
Yeah.
There are things here that, I mean, I don't think I need to explain it. It's a completely different reality. But
yeah, well, if we go back sort of 100 years, it's sort of taking a warm shower would have been sort of
right, or using a bathroom, or having refrigeration. So, but spiritual, like true connection to
and a comfortable
divinity.
supply of food as well. Yeah.
Yeah, well, yeah. So, is constant. That doesn't change.
Yeah.
The true connection. What I teach people is it's not outside of you. It's not part of a hierarchy. Everybody has the code, the frequency within them to open.
What have you heard? That there's a particular frequency of a tone that can sort of heal and that sort of stuff. It's like something like 417 megahertz or something like
Oh, there
that.
are tons of megahertz. There are tons of musical tones. There are tons of specific. Yeah, there's tons of stuff.
Whenever I hear California Dreaming by the Mamas and Papas, that always sort of takes me into a nice calm sense.
Is that because of nostalgia, or is that
Now just the harmonies, and it's just music does that for me, really. I think
it can for me too.
yeah, music sort of helps sort of settle me into all kinds of things,
kind of lets it go.
help to energize me if I've got to get up for something, or helps calm me down if I'm a bit stressed with something.
Yeah. But to answer your question that I didn't answer it about the country or city or whatever. So the beginning of Into the Hearth, which was the first published book in the series, but that I started at it's volume 14. And that and the book following Of the Flame were written over a 2.5 week period in India, and my journey there. So Into the Hearth starts out with me at the airport, and the first poem, or one of the first few poems, no, the first poem, it's who carries us to the goodbye. And I'm watching people say goodbye outside, and what is the goodbye? And I end the poem talking about sort of it's very short, who carries us to the goodbye, and then it ends with the sun and the moon orbiting each other.
Yeah.
What is a goodbye? And we really, if we could just realize every moment we breathe, and in that breath is a momentary, it's a momentary pause.
Yeah.
Before the inhale. So it's about letting go, the poetry.
Yeah.
Peacefully. But I don't know. I mean, the poetry is so different, and it's all, there's some classical reminiscent of that. It's just, there's many different influences in my poetry.
Yeah. For me, I think it's more of a gift than a learned skill, perhaps. Would you agree with that or not?
Yeah.
And the experience of healing is it's such a gift. to be able to help heal people.
I'm very honored to be present and help people and witness their transformation.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And how many are we talking for that? How many people have benefited from that?
Hundreds.
Hundreds. Oh, that's
Yeah.
cool.
Yeah.
It was funny. I said just before we came on air that I'd one of my whips that's in editing at the moment is a story called The Healer.
Yeah.
And it's funny that we see the autumn leaves behind you. I've also written a children's story, Catch a Leaf.
Oh, sweet.
It's a
Oh, and
Catch a
what
Leaf story. And
does it have, like a moral to it? Or
well, yeah, in the Catch a Leaf story for the children's story is about sort of getting kids outside during the autumn,
oh, cool.
sort of fresh air. But a game is catching a leaf, and if you catch a leaf, you get a treat. But the adult version of the story, which is
Yeah.
connected to the healer,
Oh,
the legend is if an adult catches a leaf, and there's rules between this where the adult can't run after a leaf or stand underneath the tree for a long period of time. The leaf needs to be falling, and you're just in your steady gait walking and one-handed catch a leaf. In the legend is that if you do this, you'll gain a special treat, or something special will happen for you. And in the story of the healer, the guy concerned had a lot of health issues, and after he'd caught the leaf, he gained a healing ability, so he was able to heal his partner, and then word got around that he could heal people. And without sort of going too deep into the story, if he went for a period of time without healing anyone, his own symptoms started to return. So he needed to heal people to keep well himself, and that is the basic premise of the story. But obviously, there's other things that go on, but that's the basic sort of energy and synopsis to sort of set it up.
do you mind me asking what inspired you to write it, or come up with the idea?
I don't know. It just came to me. It just came
Yeah.
to me. I think I'd been out for a walk with my wife, and I was trying to catch a leaf when it was falling. And I'm
Okay.
not good at catching things. My coordination sort of is all over the place. So yeah, it's sort of like, I think that's a nice story to sort of encourage kids to get out, really. But the healing thing is, for me personally, I've had sort of some health issues when I'm younger. I'm much healthier now, and it was sort of like, a magical ability to heal people and to heal himself through healing other people is a great story. I think a great sort of moral story that
Yeah.
people can help each other and help other people to be well. But obviously within the book, as you can imagine, there's a sinister element that sort of gets into there. That's sort
So
of a bit
what?
more,
I gotta know what, like a hint.
drama. Well, someone I can't give too much away because
I know, that's why I'm just like a hint. First letter.
But he heals people, but when bad people come across him, things take a different turn, and because they try to take him away and imprison him, and as he's imprisoned, obviously his strength goes and he starts to get weaker.
Sort of like kryptonite without kryptonite for Superman.
Well, sort of, not quite Superman sort of thing. He doesn't have wings.
No, but I mean, he loses his abilities. Isn't that what happened with kryptonite? Yeah.
But more than it, not so much losing his abilities, his own symptoms return. So his breathing, like asthma, and his own breathing starts to labour, and his chestiness returns. So he starts to get very ill if he hasn't healed anybody. But yeah, that's why I'm going through editing now. I want to sort of try and get that out in the new year. That's my challenge.
Do let me know when it comes out. I was just sighing, going editing. Yeah, yeah.
Well, you have the joy with poetry. I think some people would think editing with poetry with fewer lines is easy, but I mean, the shorter the book, the shorter the prose, every word counts. After speaking with Laura Frost on the show, I've got back into writing short stories,
Oh,
which
cool.
I'd written short stories before, and
Yeah.
I'd sort of drifted away from it a little bit, really. But after talking to Laura, I thought, no, I should get back into this. And there's one competition I've entered, and I thought it was a 3,000 word limit, and I'd written this story, and it was 3,500 words. So I thought, I've got to get this down to 3,000.
Oh.
So I'm editing it and tightening everything up and gets it down below 3,000. I'll go in to enter to submit it, and it says 2,500. So I needed to chop another 500 words out of it, and then every word counts. It's
yeah,
it's great. It's a great challenge. It's the Gutter magazine. It's Scottish in Scotland magazine. So I've entered that. It's quite a gruesome tale. The title, Infidelity, is
of the short of the story, or the
yeah. Infidelity is the working project name for that, which is all good. A lot of my work is relationship based and characters, interrelationships between characters, which is about most books are really. But yeah, that's my joy. So so what's your biggest challenge, Wendy?
What do you mean?
What do you have most problems with?
But what do you mean?
Within your poetry and within your healing practice?
Yeah, not really. Well, I suppose not enough time. You know, I have a stack of new stuff, or a pile of new stuff, and I'm going, and it's been edited, and wondering if it's going to be a chapbook or something. I just don't have time. It's just to do all the submissions that I want to do, and
Yeah,
I'd say the biggest obstacle. So prior to the first book, I had never been on social media.
yeah,
I got on Facebook once for like a week because someone was like, "Oh, you got to try it," and I, was incognito, and I was like, "I can't do it," and left it. So that was enormously difficult for me.
yeah,
I'm an incredibly private person. My work is incredibly private, and healing work, and I don't care for it at all. But I have met really lovely colleagues and people.
yeah.
But as you know, it chews up a lot of time.
It is. It's a necessary evil, really.
Well,
This
today,
show,
yes.
this show is sort of an extension of that, really.
Yeah.
The different authors and people I've met through this show. I've
It's
picked up some superb ideas, met some lovely people,
I
and
totally agree.
I
Yeah.
feel much better. I'm a much better writer having gone through that process and having that chats with lots
Yeah.
of people. It's a wonderful show. I would say that, I guess. But I mean, there's so many great chats with people. Well worth catching up on if people haven't seen every show yet.
Yeah.
But
It
it's a
can
good
be an
one.
incredibly supportive network of people, and that's the beauty I've experienced with it. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's a difficult journey. Writing is it's a difficult journey because there's so
No
much
joke.
competition out there.
Well, it's also
But
a very alone journey.
yeah, can be, can be.
Well,
Have you just a final one for you? Have you thought about having sessions with a group of people? Have you thought of that?
I know people do that. Not really, but I don't know. A year I might go, yeah. I am available for corporate retreats, but that's still seeing people,
On a one-to-one?
one-on-one.
Yeah.
But I am in the process of something, having the time to really just do it all on my webpage of starting to offer classes, self-healing, yoga, a bunch of different things. But
Yeah.
do
That's good.
I see myself? I don't know, maybe in another 5 years I'll go, "Oh my God, yeah, why didn't I do this sooner?"
Well, we've got your links in the description, so
Oh, thank you, Simon.
so people can go have a look at Wendy's website and check into
Yeah,
things like that. Wendy,
yeah, thank
it has
you.
been special to
Thank
talk to you.
you
So thank you very
for
much for your
inviting
time.
me.
It's been my
Yeah,
pleasure.
yeah, thanks. All right.
Thanks very much. Thanks, Wendy.
Bye.